Is that you, Athena, doing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So next we'll be having our first workshop, which is for creating strong pitches, by Dr. Sarah Lewis Cortes. And she is a cybersecurity worker at Netflix currently, I think. I got to know her through Each One Teach One, which was like a technology program over the summer for teens, I guess. So we're really excited to have you here.
Thanks. Hi, Athena.
Wow.
Thanks for the intro. Hi, everybody. Hi, Ms. Torres. I see a few familiar faces and some new people. So great to see everybody here at the hackathon. Woohoo! So you guys just kicked off this morning? Okay, great. Well, I'm going to talk about pitch decks for the next few minutes and give you guys a chance to ask me any questions about pitch decks. And has anybody here done a pitch before? I bet some of you have. Anyone admitting to having done a pitch before? No? You don't have to have, it's okay. All right, well, if anybody has, feel free to any ideas and suggestions or interrupt me with questions. That's all good. And I'll try to check in on the chat, but I probably won't be able to. So Athena, maybe you or someone else can monitor the chat. And if someone has a question, feel free to jump in. And I see Sophia Lou here. Hey, Sophia, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. And yeah, a few other familiar faces. It's great to see all your faces and get to know you this morning. So let me present, and I'm going to keep my slides in kind of let's see, I think I need to have my screen sharing shared, if that's possible, to present. It's saying host disabled participant screen sharing for me.
Okay, I think I just updated it.
Okay. Probably if you make me temporary co-host. Yay, there we go. Okay. And we'll just do this. Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Woohoo. This is pitches, and we're going to talk about 5 steps to creating a basic pitch. Does anyone know what a pitch deck is anyway? I actually didn't know what a pitch deck was a few years ago, and people keep talking about it here, especially in San Francisco. I spent a lot of time on the East Coast, and people talk about it a lot more on the West Coast here. Anyone have any idea what a pitch deck is? No, any guesses? So a pitch deck, as you may have guessed, is a deck of slides that is intended to pitch your idea in the hope of winning something at the end. It might be winning some investment money. It might be winning a contest. It might be winning somebody's favorable opinion and willingness to join in your idea. So a pitch deck is intended to be a persuasive presentation, basically. That's really kind of all it is. And I bet most of you guys have done presentations. I'm using Google Slides, but you can do it in a number of formats. And I'm guessing that most of you guys have used Google Slides out there before, but if you haven't, that's okay too. We'll go over it. So we're going to go over 5 easy steps to creating your pitch. And in this hackathon, you guys may already have really clear ideas about what you want to build this weekend, or you may still have no idea whatsoever. And you might be looking for a team that you want to join that might have an idea. But if you have any ideas for like a great mobile app or a great website, web service, or any kind of business, you can be thinking about that. Like, what kind of business would you like to start, or what kind of enterprise or thing would you like to do? And this pitch deck is intended to briefly present your idea in a persuasive way that will get across just the most crucial information in a really short period of time that will help people decide whether or not they want to be persuaded by your idea. All right, so here are the 5 top level steps that we're going to talk about. The first one is some live pitch basics, because pitch decks are intended to accompany a live pitch, which would be like a short presentation. How many minutes is your presentation, Athena? How many minutes will the presentations be tomorrow?
I think I'm not exactly sure, but probably somewhere around like 5 to 5 minutes. And it'll be like a video.
Right, that's typical that you might do 3 to 5 minutes. And that is true for like almost every pitch that I've ever done, even in my professional life. And they're often recorded as videos, which is great because you get to practice them over and over again. So it'll be about 3 to 4 minutes. 3 to 4 minutes might seem like a long time, but it's actually super short. So one of the things you have to really focus on is like what's most important and what's a clear, concise way to get your point across. And then some ideas and tips for creating a memorable pitch. Then some logistics about pitch decks and some suggestions for rehearsing, and then time for any questions. Of course, you can ask any questions in the middle of my talk today. That's fine. All right, now the last couple of times I did this, people asked me to spend a bit of time just briefly going over my own background, which has a few slides. I'm just going to talk about my background briefly, and then we'll get back to pitch decks. So let's see. This is my background. And I'm Dr. Sarah Lewis Cortes, as Athena introduced, and I work at Netflix in cybersecurity and privacy engineering. And I also work with Alameda County Sheriff's Office, Interpol, the FBI, and other agencies doing cybersecurity work. And I have been an executive at a number of large companies in the US, including American Express, Fidelity, Gendyne, Draper, and a number of the organizations listed here. And one of the things I did in my career was on 9/11, our parent company at Marsh McLennan was in the 99th floor of the World Trade Center when it was destroyed and went down. And I was responsible for disaster recovery and cybersecurity at that time and oversaw their recovery. So that's one of the things that I've done in my career. And this tells about some of the other things that I've done. I've been a programmer and legal analyst at the Department of Energy early in my career and have a legal background as well. Here is some of my education. I got my PhD just a few years ago from Northeastern University in computer science. Woohoo! And I was at Boston University Medical School because I studied biomedical forensic sciences, which includes DNA and other forensic sciences, because I use digital forensics in a lot of my investigations work. And I got my master's degree in computer science at Boston University and my bachelor's degree in Harvard University in languages. Okay, and I've published a lot of articles and other things, and here are some examples of some of the things that I've published, including technical journal articles on cybersecurity, surveillance, and investigations, and also articles in law and technology as well. And here are some of the apps. I've built some apps myself. So I'm excited for you guys building apps in this hackathon or pitching businesses or any ideas you have. And here are some examples of apps that I've built. And I do other stuff. Some of you guys may know me from Each One Teach One, like Sophia and Athena, which is a nonprofit organization that we have where we teach all sorts of people technology for better careers. And we teach website development and graphic design and other stuff like that. And I also teach at Merritt College in their cybersecurity program. Okay, any questions? Hopefully that was brief. You guys can think up questions afterwards if you like and put them in the chat. Okay, so back to our pitching. And what's our time check? Athena.
I think we were planning on ending this at around 11:30, but we also started a bit later, so we should be
Okay.
better.
That should be no problem. So this is a slide that has a ton of information in it, and it's really hard to read. But there's something else on the slide that's not so hard to look at. What would you guys say is easier to look at, the words or the picture? What do you think? Words, picture, words, picture. Probably the picture, right? And so this deck uses some graphics to try to illustrate some of the points I'm making, which are that graphics are super important in all your pitch decks. And some people say, yeah, but what does a cupcake have to do with pitch decks? And the point that we're making here is that after you do a pitch, a lot of times what people will remember are your graphics more than the words that are on the slide. And that will also help them remember your pitch. And so you want to choose graphics that are appealing, and you want them to relate to your topic, but also remember how important graphics are. So what we're saying in the pitch deck basics is that the goal is to get investors or judges interested enough to want another meeting for more information or invite you to the next round. It's like a movie trailer that highlights the essential ingredients of your business, inspires you to go see the full movie, and aim your live pitch. We've said here for 3 minutes. And usually if you aim it for 3, you might be lucky if you finish it in 4, and 5 will be like considered quite long, and allow time for questions and answers. Okay. And so creating a memorable pitch, that you want to deliver a pitch that will make judges very interested in your business. So the point of it isn't to be comprehensive or to provide every little detail or to super explain every single aspect of your idea. It's really to engage and get people excited about the basic of your idea. And so another pitch deck expert, Nathan Gold, has said, first and foremost, you will need to work on standing out. And so what that means is that there are a lot of other people doing pitches in the world, and you want to be memorable. And so you want to think about what is going to help the judges to remember you and what's going to make you stand out from others. So that is top advice about creating a memorable pitch. Okay, so some ways to stand out that you guys can think about when you're creating your pitches. I've included some ideas, but I would love to hear any ideas that the rest of you guys might have for this. And so some things that can make it stand out are by starting with a question, asking the audience a question that will really get them to think. And I asked you guys a question a couple of slides back. Does anybody remember what the question was? Any brave people that want to guess? Sophia, I'm going to pick on you and ask if you remember.
Have
I
anyone?
think it was, does anyone know what a pitch deck is?
That is definitely a question I asked. Thanks, Sophia. That's a question I asked, which hopefully got people to think. Another question I asked is, why do you think I have pictures of cupcakes on this pitch deck? So I'm hoping that that question also got people to think a little bit about, yeah, why does she have cupcakes on this pitch deck? So that is an example of a question that you hope will break through to the judges and get them to actually think. So that's an example of starting your pitch deck with a question. Another one is to start with the word imagine. So imagine for a minute that you're sitting on Mars and staring back on Earth. So that's another good way to start your pitch deck if you're stuck. Statistics can be a good way if you have some statistics that you think will be really interesting and surprising for your audience. Of course, being a researcher, I believe in citing sources. So you also want to think about how you can cite your sources on that. And another really good way to start is with a quote that can really connect your message that you're trying to get across with your audience. So sometimes getting started is the hardest part. And these are 4 ideas for ways that you can get started creating something memorable. And here's 2 other ideas. The first one is about telling a story. And this is one of the most successful ways to start a pitch that will engage your audience. It needs to be a really short story, but you can tell a story about yourself, just some little anecdote about something that happened to you that illustrates the problem that you're trying to solve. And that can engage your audience. And the final one is what we call a value proposition that you may have seen on pitch shows on TV or any other show, is when you share, we help blank do blank by doing blank. That's a really good way to super summarize your ideas. Okay, so ways to create a memorable pitch deck and some ideas for that. All right, so let's talk for a minute about pitch decks. And so they are a brief and enticing, hopefully, visual presentation used to overview your business plan. It's for potential investors or customers, and it's a great tool to use during a pitch. This is actually something that, besides being used in this hackathon, you guys may have done them before, undoubtedly. And you also use it in school all the time and in work and business for all kinds of things. So it's a super valuable skill to have, I would say. And we often create it with Google Slides. That's what I use today to present the PowerPoint. And anybody here, has anyone here used Prezi before? That's another great presentation tool. And you can find Prezi out on the web. It's free and downloadable. And one great thing about Prezi is it automatically adds motion to your slides and pitch deck, which can be very compelling and help you stand out. Of course, you can add motion with Google Slides and PowerPoint as well. Okay, so here's a really good rule that I try to remember, but I don't always succeed. And that is the 10-20-30 rule. And this is that the presentation should have no more than 10 slides, which I've already violated that rule in this presentation because we have more than 10 slides. It should last no longer than 20 minutes. And we already said that pitch is generally, for this, typically are 3 to 4 minutes, sometimes as long as 5. But eventually you'll get to around where you have actually 20 minutes. But in general, for all presentations, it's great to limit it to 20 minutes because people can't really listen and pay attention for longer than that. And to have no smaller than 30-point font so people can easily read the slides. Now we're all on Zoom, so it's not that hard to read slides and you can adjust them on your screen if you can't. But when you're live and giving a pitch and you have a room full of people, it can actually be really hard to see small type on a slide. So the other good thing about using really large font, like 30-point, is that it really cuts down and limits the amount of words that you're putting on a slide, which is always good because people can't absorb that much. So what this slide says is instead of trying to fit as much information as you can into your pitch, because you only have a certain amount of time, just focus on the essential information. And Guy Kawasaki, another pitch deck expert, recommends making one slide for each of the following topics. So here's 8 slides that will take up most of your 10 slides already. The first one is a title slide. So I think I included one in this deck, and that uses up 1 slide already. And then a second slide explaining the problem that you're trying to solve, which should be super memorable. And then a third slide that presents the solution, which might be your app, a mobile app, a web app, a website, or just a kind of a business or an organization or enterprise. The next one would describe the underlying technology briefly, if that's pertinent, if you're doing a tech code project. Number 5 is a business model, which is a term that can be kind of confusing, but it basically means how will you make money from this? And a lot of people are pitching nonprofit ideas, and those are great, but nonprofits actually also have to make money somehow because they have to balance their budget. And so you always have to have a business model for how your business will be funded. Number 6 slide could be a marketing plan for how you're going to communicate and get people to know about your idea that you're pitching, your business or your app, your website or your organization. If people don't know about it, then it's hard to be successful. Number 7 is a competitor analysis, because you may have a fabulous idea, but lots of other people do as well. I was at Boston University one year when some PhD students were pitching to me to help them build an app for their PhD dissertation projects. And one person put together a fantastic plan for a nutrition app. But the problem was that there are so many nutrition apps out there that she forgot to explain like how her nutrition app would stand out among the others. And that's what a competitor analysis is. It's acknowledging and researching that there are other similar ideas out there, and then figuring out what makes your tool different. Just because there's other similar ideas doesn't mean you should give up. There's lots of really super successful businesses, apps and sites, organizations that have sounded really similar, but are actually slightly different. So this just reflects to your audience that you've given that some thought. And then number 8 is projections and milestones. That sort of shows that you have a concrete plan with some dates or timelines for your next steps and how you're going to get where you're going. Okay, this is one of my favorite slides because I really like the picture in this with the little presents on the cupcake. It's kind of amazing to think about how they accomplish this. I think it's I would be interested in hearing from any of the cooks out there after the presentation, the answer to my question, which is, how do you think people made the presents cupcake? Anyway, while you're thinking about that, this one is a little bit about the title slide. So breaking down a little more information. And some suggestions are that you think up an app logo. And I think Athena or some later presenters are going to show you Figma and maybe some other tools for developing logos and pictures as well. Thinking up a team name is super important in order to help your audience remember you in the midst of other people. And it's going to have your team members' names. It might be a good idea to have their photos if you want. And here's a little bit about your problem slide. And this is super important because you want to use your hook. Anyone know what a hook is? Any suggestions or ideas? It's kind of like a fishing hook, but the idea is that it's an idea so compelling that your audience sits up and pays attention and takes notice and takes interest. You've hooked their interest, basically. And you want to be sure to describe the problem that you're trying to solve, because one thing that pitchers do sometimes is jump directly into describing their idea without stepping back for a minute and clarifying for the audience what problem they're trying to solve. So that's really important to do. And then finally, what we've talked about is using an image to show the problem or something related to your opening hook can be very effective. And you can see what I've used, which are cupcakes, the images that I'm showing. Okay. And here are the solution slide. The team's value proposition. We help blank by do blank by doing blank, 3 blanks, and why it is unique. So this might be your 3rd slide to help explain this. Your 4th slide, the underlying technology. And this is where you might show like a little flow chart or some schematics to show that maybe if you are using technology, this is a code and no code hack. So you don't have to use technology, but if you want to, you could show that maybe you're using Python or SQL, or maybe you're using Spring or some other, or React or some type of framework for mobile apps. or something, or maybe you're using Weebly Website Builder, anything that might show them what the underlying technology is. And what your business model is, who are your users, and how will you get them to pay? And even if it's a nonprofit, the organization has to be funded somehow. So this is a really important one. Your marketing plan, how are you going to reach your customers and get the word out? Don't forget to include a slide about this. And this is the competitor analysis that we talked about, that's providing a complete view of who is your competition and how your app is different from theirs. Okay, your projections and milestones. Your milestones might be your major steps of things that you're hoping to accomplish. So maybe it's getting an investor, maybe it's getting your app published to the App Store. Maybe it's getting your website published to a publication store, or maybe it's getting a grant. Your financial projections and production milestones for when you're going to complete major steps like finish your app, start your organization, and then sharing the accomplishments that you've already had so far, where you are now with your app, if you're doing an app, or your organization or business idea, and what you need. Are you hoping to win an investment? Are you looking to win the contest? So this final slide gets your message across one last time. Okay, and so this is an activity that you guys can do together if you want. I'm going to stop presenting right now and open up to any questions that anybody might have. Let's see, it looks like so, Athena, I don't know if you have time for breakout rooms actually for people to practice doing pitch decks. If you do, I'm happy to stay and talk and help people with their pitch decks afterwards or anytime. Today, I'm actually going to be on a flight tomorrow, so I probably won't be available to help then. But yeah, so that concludes our presentation. Any questions? No?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Can you put the slides in the chat so I can review them? It was very helpful, by the way. Thank you.
Sure. I will share these slides to you and let me put them in the chat. This should be available to everybody.
Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, you're welcome. Can anybody click on those and just double check that? Looks like some of you are getting in already, so. Yeah. Yay, it's working.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, I wish I could stick around and hear some of your ideas. I will be available today if anybody needs some mentoring or advice, so feel free to check with me.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah.
You're welcome. Thanks a lot. Nice to meet you guys. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So I'm going to hand it over, and Athena, we just have some logistics things to take care of. So I'm going to hand it over to Antonia.
Okay, hi everyone. So we just spent some time rearranging the teams based on your guys' feedback. So I'm gonna put them in the chat, and I can also get them emailed if people want that. But if you still see any mistakes, no, it's not letting.